What's Up? The book Game Time Decision Making by David Meltzer. It has so many good lessons in it. It's really related around sports. I mean, it makes sense. David Meltzer is integrated so deeply in the sports community, but the lessons do extend beyond sports and into life. And I know a lot of the examples are sport related, and if you have a sport mind, then it helps, but you really don't need one because it kind of transcends all of that. So really suggest you read it. I'm going to get into some of the details of it here. So let's get to it. First, the core concept behind everything in the book are the 4 pillars of truth, which is gratitude, empathy, accountability, and effective communication. So gratitude, saying thank you, being appreciative for the things around you. Empathy is emotional intelligence, knowing how to communicate with someone specifically in a way that they're going to respond best to it, and also knowing that within yourself. Accountability is about taking ownership of the positive, the negatives, and kind of really having a grasp on, okay, this is why it happened, and I was the reason that it happened. And then effective communication, which is exactly what it sounds like. All right, and those 4 pillars exist in all of the chapters of the book, so I'm going to kind of touch really quickly on the things that stood out, at least to me, in each chapter. So first, putting together your roster. And this is about surrounding yourself with people who not only are going to support your ambition, your mentality, if you want to be a positive person, they surround you with, positivity, just add that to your life, but also deficiencies in your skill set. So having self-awareness about the areas where you might not have strengths, the people around you that do have those strengths could then fulfill that role. And that's where relativity comes in, is in that comparison, your skill is relative to someone else's, and having the self-awareness to know that difference is a huge asset that he talks about. Chapter 2, offensive versus a defensive mindset. And this is kind of the transition of thought, eventually getting to, maybe building a habit. So your thoughts start as a conscious thought, then it goes to a subconscious thought, and eventually, with enough work, gets to an unconscious thought. And that's where your habits exist because it requires 0 effort. And the whole goal of this transition is to get your thoughts into becoming a unconscious competency. And an unconscious competency is exactly that, where you don't have to think about executing on something. It is just something that's so ingrained in you that it brings positivity to your life, brings positive things to your life. And one way that he suggests is the leader's litany. That's how a lot of people in athletics actually get unconscious competencies within their psyche. It is to rehearse positive affirmations, to have positive self-talk, to really just flood your mind with messaging that's all related to that unconscious competency you're trying to build, so that it becomes a default way of reacting instead of an effortful way of reacting. Chapter 3, it's called Coaching Trees and Growth, and it's all about mentorship. And he suggests you have 3 mentors at any given time because you always need that kind of North Star, that specialist in your life. And he gives a really cool example about how mentorship actually applied in a significant figure in sports. So Bill Russell is one of the greatest NBA players of all time, but he was actually cut from his high school basketball team. And instead of giving up and the world would have lost one of the greatest basketball players of all time, his mentor invested in a membership at the Boys and Girls Club. And Bill was motivated enough to continue practicing, and we know how the rest of his career transpired, and he obviously overcame that challenge, but it was through mentorship that he had the opportunity to. More chapters. Okay, chapter 4, don't trip on the first down chains. And this is interesting because it's actually written as the first down chains behind you, but he talks about also the first down chains in front of you. So the ones in front of you are those goals, or the things that you're trying to accomplish. And he didn't say score a touchdown, just get to the first down. So it's kind of about being more realistic about your objective, and when you're goal setting, you can also be more realistic. And there's a reminder of that in this chapter. But kind of the core of it is the first down chains behind you. So the experiences that you have and all the lessons that you've learned, and a lot of the negative things that happen to you. He actually suggests you take a position of gratitude. One of the 4 pillars of life is you take gratitude, and for that negative situation, if you're thankful for it, then you're more likely to take the lesson from it. And when you do that, you actually have an opportunity to acquire really specific situational knowledge. And David Meltzer thinks that situational knowledge is the key to performance in any setting because there's no replacement for experience. And the only way that you can get there is by having those experiences and taking the lessons from those experiences. So he kind of proposes that you position negative experiences in that light. Chapter 5, being in the game. And this kind of is David Meltzer's core belief that, it exists in this book, but it's everything that he does, which is about the consistent, persistent pursuit of potential. And he says consistent, which is every day, and persistent, which is without quitting. So it's important, and the example he gives, maybe I should do that first, is he talks about himself and when he was in his college football career. He tried to make a play on defense, he missed, the other team scored a touchdown. He was really hard on himself. And then his coach asked him how he's going to respond. Do you want to return the next kickoff? He said, yeah, put me in, coach. And so when he did, he returned it for a touchdown. And that kind of speaks to the highs and lows of life. You know, it's a high and low in sport. There's a high and low in life. And those things are kind of out of our control, and they're, you know, binary. They're really independent of each other. But the one thing that you can control is your response in those two extremes. And having a consistent way of responding is way more effective than being susceptible to the ebbs and flows of the highs and lows of life. And now the final 3 chapters are about an offensive versus defensive of, and you know, this is more his business, kind of marketing, business, and business development side. So the first one is branding, and the offense and defensive branding is basically having an emotional connection with someone. That's at the core of it. Everyone, you know, if you're trying to transact with them, the best thing to do is just to reach them on their emotional level, and that's kind of where empathy also comes in too. But kind of that's his suggestion for branding. Is it has to be really emotionally driven. Then you go to marketing, and he has the AAA, the 3 A's of marketing, which is alignment, action, and adjustment. So alignment is your brand, basically. So 80% of marketing is having a message that your brand can communicate to someone where they're inspired to move. So 80% is already branding within marketing, but that's the first A. Then you get to action. So it's actually implementing that strategy or way you're going to connect with someone. And then adjustment, which is the core of marketing, which is you have your metrics, and then you kind of iterate based on your feedback to come upon the final conclusion of how you want to move forward. And then last chapter of the book is about communication, which is fitting. Effective communication is the 4th pillar. But he proposes there are 3 different things to communication in today's day and age. So there's the content, or what you're actually saying, you know, what's being communicated. Then you have access. You have to present the opportunity for people to see it. And that, you know, that access both exists on kind of you putting it out there, but then also on their willingness to receive it. And then the last is medium. So what is the actual forum or the presentation of that messaging that they're going to then interact with? So that is communication in whole, is its content, access, and medium. So went through a lot really quickly, but I say that all because there is so much more in this book. Game Time Decision Making. You really need to check it out for yourself. I suggest you order it right now. You will not regret it. David Meltzer has ideas that I can't even articulate in, you know, this kind of way. You have to read it for yourself. So I appreciate you taking the time. I really hope you read the book, and you have a great day.